have you ever feel stuck in your way or to break through your comfort zones or to think a new way to get innovations?
So the power of the human mind to shape reality and influence our actions have been recognized throughout history. However, existing beliefs and preconceived notions can limit our ability to explore and discover new possibilities.
Imagine your mind is the first thing that shapes all the actions in your life. Just like when the people want to go to place A to place B, they got invent the transport stations, they got the wheels, and then they got the motorbike, and then they got the airplanes. But however, I mean that our team have desired so goals about the way when you get the comfort zone, and sometimes the process happen. Then you get panics, and in the panic, people get depressed, and they want to suicide, they want to analyze, and they want to challenge themselves, maybe to get a new thing. But in the 21st century, everything happened too fast. So if we don't have innovation to get through that obstacle, maybe we will be left behind in this century. So, want to get innovations and overcome all the obstacles we meet in our life. The thing that our team here and now want to reinvent is reinvent the mind. So, what's prevent us from reinvent our mind? 1, 2, 3. Attachment. So, I mean that attachment, Vietnamese means sự dính chấp. So what is the consequences of attachment? So, firstly, if you got be attached, sometimes you got the feeling that you will be biased. Biased for something, mean the bias for the truth. You think your opinions, your mindsets, your everything is the truth, and if people don't listen to you, they get false. The secondly, maybe you get to argue to the people you very love, but the way you show that love may be tough and rough, because that if you love me, you should go with me. You should maybe mentor me when I get through the part time, all the time. Not like the way you message me is very short and very angry about that. But that it's just your definitions, not them. And that if you be attached from that your own definition, the people who get sad in the end is you, right? That being biased or something is always not good. We are the master in our life. We are the director in what event happened in our life. We can control all the external factor to come, but we can control what we reacts. And do you know how to control behavior come from? It comes from our mind. So that if you meet the obstacle in your life, just reinvent your mind first, and then you can maybe get through the challenge very easy. So that how to design, as our team concept to prevent from being attached. Firstly, it first come from your mind, your thinking. So if we got the Sigmund Freud 3 layer of mind, we have something very deeply about in ourselves called unconscious. That in conscious you do, unconscious your emotions, your knowledge, but in conscious, that there is something deeply in your side that you can explain. That your bad habit, for example, when you be in love, and what do you think about the people that you left me, and you will be very angry about that. But that it's very hard to let them go because they left me, they left you, and you give them so much, it's very hard to forget them. So unconscious habits control us so much. How about neuroscience? That our brain has a mechanism, to protect ourselves from being, get dangerous in the natural natures, and maybe our center is developed and got maybe about the mechanism until now. For example, if there's something make you very angry and you got emotions, and then come from hippocampus, it make memories, and from thalamus, it make the right action like that. That the actions like that is not always true. For example, you're being scored by your teacher, so the action like after that, that you will score again. So that we are different from the animal, and that we have the humans deeply in ourselves. So how to control our emotion rightly and not being affected by the maybe I mean that a mechanism, a nothing from science to neuroscience. We must to control ourselves by the right mindset. So I'll give you a case that I think very interesting about the love. It's neither Wang and Tony Chan. Neither Wang is a billionaire of the Hong Kong property corporate. It's very popular. And I mean that after her husband died, she got a lover. He is a Tony Chan. He is a feng shui master. I mean thầy phong thủy in Vietnam is. And when she fall in love, she do everything very, maybe I think it's maybe not wisdom enough. I mean that not in the time that when she didn't meet him, she very selfish and want to share the money to other. But when he meet Tony Chan, she can destroy a house maybe maybe cost maybe $1,000. Maybe after that maybe 1 billion Vietnam dong to make him happy. I mean that. The love like this is maybe wrong because a billion Vietnam dong dollar, I mean, can save children with a lot of meal, nutrient meal when people got hungry. So try to step yourself, not being attached from love, always thinking what is do you want in your life, and then you got the next thing we call that right actions and right effort.
So I want to tell you about the story of Mr. Lê Phước Vũ. He's the founder and chairman of Hoa Sen Group, and he's a highly unusual businessman. So he is leading the second biggest steel manufacturer in Vietnam, Hoa Sen Group. But ever since he was 30, he has been preparing to relinquish his position, donate away all his possession, and officially become a Buddhist monk by 2026. So at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, when Hoa Sen Group business was struggling as with the rest of the world, Mr. Vũ, as the chairman, made a decision to aim for negative growth, cutting his group's projected revenue by 5% compared to previous years. So this decision was met with protests from the stakeholders, and when they pressed him on why is he allowing for such an underwhelming goal, Mr. Vu's reply was that this goal at that particular circumstance was exciting enough for his management team without putting them through extra unnecessary stress. So it seems that Mr. Vu's detachment from worldly possessions has somehow allowed him to make a decision that prioritizes the well-being of his employees instead of pursuing profit at all costs. And as of today, 2023, when the worst of the pandemic is over, and Hoa Sen Group is actually on their way to recovery to pre-pandemic profit level, Mr. Vu's decision seems to be right. And it shows that business success does not have to always be driven by, the preconceived concept of being ambitious and hungry for more at all times. So with the right action, the right effort, what it can lead us is to have the right mindfulness, the right meditation, to stay always in the moment.
I mean that mindfulness is not a big word. It's become in the dictionary. Mindful, it means that you stay in this moment and watch everything that should be without put your expectations or your effort that want to change everything. I mean, in business case, when you have a goal and you plan everything too much and everything can happen your way, it's very hard to accept, right? But I mean, from the story of Mr. Lê Phước Vũ, and now I want you to do yourself another case from the UK. It's about KFC in 2018, February. I mean that there happened in the supply chains that they want to need to close maybe 800 up to 900 stores in the UK. I mean that you are the KFC, very big, and in someday you need to close someday to may solve the problem of supply chains. And I mean that you are a chicken restaurant, but you don't have chicken. So what happened? You can't have anything to solve and to sell to your customer, right? But I mean that in the KFC they did that. They do marketing. They changed the KFC to something FCK, and you know what I mean that. They try to talk about themselves And the secondly, they try to open with a limited store and limited time of buying. I mean that in marketing, it's something that if you want to attract a loyal customer, you need to do like that to attract them. But the deeply meaning in this story that everything, maybe obstacle can come directly in your life, but we don't know. But how we can do something to make it memorable and meaningful, that make maybe it's long-lasting event is have passed through. I mean that when you're so success, you don't remember what something when you the point you falling down, you remember all the time. It can be life lessons for other. I mean that like KFC, maybe they got the decreased revenue, but the marketing case become the lesson in the marketing class and business case. So, in the end, I want to ask that from the right mindset, from the right actions and right effort, and thirdly, it's about mindfulness, which is everything in that should be. I mean that if we treat everything like it should be, I mean that we don't get social recognition, we don't have the social status, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough friends to understand us. So what we have in the end of this journey?
I think it's important for us to think carefully about what will remain in our mind when our journey comes to an end. Would you remember how much money you made? How much praise people has heaped on you? Or would you remember the effort that you have struggled through to get through where you are today? Would, the victory and triumph over everyone else be actually more long-lasting than the feeling of gratitude you feel when you are down and then someone come to give you help?
There are studies from the Harvard University about 75 years long study about happiness and well-being. Maybe Waldinger, a director of Harvard, studied of adult development. He shared insight from the study that the people who got the long age, maybe 18 years old, and they got happy from the close relationship. I mean from the real connection between the people among families, friends, and maybe their worker. I mean that it's all right. Happiness and money can come to each other, but I mean that if money can bring you happiness while we have work, if the social status can bring you joyful in life, while we in the end maybe in the top of the maybe social status, we feel empty. Reinvent the mind is not, I mean that it can help you to get innovations, but can also help you to invent the definitions of happiness, what brings meaning to you after all the obstacles that you've been through. Life may be interesting, we don't know what has happened. And happy, it should be belong to everyone. Happiness is the way.
So, like Thích Nhất Hạnh has said, there is actually no way to happiness, but happiness is the way. So, personally, I myself, I've been living in Singapore for 14 years. I work in IT, and I had what most people would call a successful, happy life. I made a decent income. I had very nice colleagues. But if I were to be truthful to myself, right, there's something still lacking. And it wasn't until COVID-19 hit and forced everyone's life to essentially a stop, that when I have a lot of time to reflect on myself, that I came to a realization that probably I have been too attached to society's expectation of what a successful and happy person is. So when I made the decision to go back to Vietnam and study medicine, a totally 100% career switch from what I was doing before, I can understand from many other people's perspective that I'm doing something crazy, that many people would say that, oh, why are you throwing away your life, your happiness like that? But what I can tell you is within 1 year that I've been in VinUni, even if I haven't become a doctor yet, I am having so much fun and enjoying my happiness here in Vietnam. I'm closer to what I would call my own personal happiness than I was during my years in Singapore. So I think what I really want to say is, yeah, society has its definition, kind of like a very preconceived definition of happiness, but it's a very narrow kind of definition. And for each of us, right, you probably would want to look into yourself and try to find your own meaning instead of being, like what we say, too attached to what other people, what society at large might say about who you are and what can bring you the most satisfaction out of life.
I mean that in the story of my sister, Ji-Win, she don't be attached, maybe used to, but don't be attached by the social norm tell her to do that. In the years of this age, you should have this, have that, have something like this. But she chose a different way. But I mean that event in our sharing in the TEDx, we will mean that if you choose money, if you choose a social norm, it doesn't matter. Because you think it's happy, so choose it. Like, I mean, in our team think that life is maybe interesting, that you don't know the answer, maybe forward. I mean that everything maybe happen like the way you not expected always happen. But the way you try to think, step back, reflect what you want, what brings meaning to you in this end of this journey, of this article, and put all your effort to do for it, and create the life you really want, not the life that people told you to do. Happiness and the amazing world are waiting for you here
And here,
and now. Thank you.
thank you.